I'm talking with Dan Foster on April 27th, 2000. April 27th, 2000, and here with Dan Foster, Radio Man.
Hi.
Radio voice is all we want now.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to talk to you tonight about more along the lines of you getting to town at any juncture and just started finding yourself in circles of people who were pickers and players, singers, and how that kind of got together and held together. Maybe you can tell some stories about
Okay.
that, who the folks were. Why don't you take yourself back to when you
I'll be
got to town?
more than happy to do that, and then if I start drifting too far off the subject, you just kind of steer me back to where you want me.
Yeah, and I love discussions about the music and all that, but I also want to get down some of the story element to this thing. Who gathered where, and who formed what, and how did things hold together, and what did groups do as groups, things like that. So anyway.
So what I can remember, of course, is just one point of view, and I can give you some other folks that you should talk to that'll have
Right. I assume
different experiences during that time.
I assume that any story is going to be a collection of disparate stories
Sure.
that will
You're Herodotus, like we said.
meet in some
Get it all,
concentric
please.
circle, and yes.
Sort it out. Well, like I said last time, I came to town and just was doing my laundry and playing some tunes on a little pocket instrument, penny whistle that I carry along because I like those tunes a lot. It's a good portable thing. And this fella came up and said, "Hey, I know that tune." And that's sort of like, you do that purposefully when you know what kind of music that you have in mind.
Right.
And, I don't want to entertain yourself, but hell, somebody hears you, you might meet somebody you know. And, it's happened more than once. So, John told me where his brother David lived, and that was over in Hyde Park area, over a place called the Sunday Palace. I was living next door, but I don't know what it is now. It's over there in a little shopping center. But then I think he told me where he lived, and the next day or so I went over there and we got together, and I met his brother David, who's a real wonderful guy. He was married to started a group called the Austin Friends of Traditional Music.
Now that was who? Maggie Polachek and who?
Dave and Maggie
Dave and
Polachek.
Maggie Polachek, okay.
And Maggie died some years ago, unfortunately, and it's a great loss because she was a wonderful person. I think she kind of ramrodded the beer garden thing at the Armadillo on Sundays for the AF team. They set up and
What do they do there?
what would happen is every Sunday at 2 o'clock there was essentially an open mic. I think one of the first ones around probably. But they tried to keep it just traditional music, because what they were looking for was they had kind of the same sense of music that we talked about last time. It didn't really matter what it was. Some guy might come and play the oud, or a bluegrass band might show up, and they just have a little sign-up list. It was down in the Armadillo Beer Garden. Wonderful, just the best place I've ever seen for that kind of stuff. Very informal. And a guy named Leo Sullivan, who knows everybody and everything, I think, would show up and put up a little sound system in the microphone, and then somebody would take the list and announce who was going to be next. And it'd be Dennis McDaniels and his bluegrass band, or whoever would happen to be. And just spend the afternoon that way, drinking beer, visiting, iced tea, whatever you had in mind. Listen to people play, and then there'd always be folks playing out in the parking lot because it was big and spread around. You saw that picture on my screensaver on the computer,
Right.
and just hardly any traffic. There was all kinds of places to go to pick. And next door was a auto repair shop run by a guy named Orly Don. He's still around. He's still my mechanic. Great guy, but he was sort of tied in with the old Armadillo thing.
This is about 74, roughly?
74, 75,
Okay.
and on then, of course, a long time before I started, being involved. All those guys were here doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Don was a real good friend of Robert Shaw, who was a wonderful piano player, barrel house, chalk house piano player around here, and it was just a wonder to get to hear him play. Well, Don and he got together. They used to have parties all the time, and Don was a good friend of Lindsay Hazley, who's a auto harp player, and so he knew lots of folks. And I didn't know all those guys really well, but when they had a party, we'd go over there and enjoy that. I always loved to hear Don play the piano. Let's see. So we just meet there every Sunday and do that. And then off of that, of course, people would form friendships and find musical partners. And I met the woman I'm married to there, as a matter of fact.
Is that right?
She's Christy Palumbo. She had she specialized in 1920s kind of novelty songs and stuff. And I remember the day I saw her, she was playing "We Just Couldn't Say Goodbye," which is a Ruth Eddy song from the 20s. And she's a big fan of Fats Waller and Billy Murray and a lot of obscure comedians and musicians and Billie Holiday and a lot of blues stuff. But she's just wonderful, just cute as she could be. And at the time, we were not romantically engaged for a number of years. We were just real good friends and kind of hung around the same folks. And my interest at the time, like we were talking before, was really running towards Irish traditional music. And I really enjoyed it, still love it, a whole lot. At that time I was doing what I do whenever I get interested in something. That's pretty much dig in like a tick and stick my head in and suck all the blood out of it I can to stay completely immersed in it. And so was at that time, ran into a fellow named Ralph White that we talked about earlier, playing on the street. And he'd been over there to Ireland several times and had just a genuine way of playing, so we kind of hooked up together and played a good bit. And then there was other folks all around. There was a band called Eagle Bone Whistle who were very popular at the time, and even eventually got around to doing a record. Their main venue was Maggie Mays back in its former incarnation as the redoubt of emigres from Scotland and England and Ireland, soccer teams and Pakistanis and all the folks who'd go in there and crawl in there in a cool environment. It was so nice.
And did they play kind of what we would call Celtic tunes or something?
Oh yeah, there was. Now Eagle Bone Whistle played and Graham Townsend. It was not Townsend. What was his last name? Graham. Brain is going. He's a veterinarian in San Antonio now. And Stephanie Powell, who plays now on and off with different bands. Greg Raskin, who's no longer here. Jane Gilman, who's in town.
Yeah.
You've probably heard her pronounce.
I know who she is. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were doing that over at Maggie Mays, and they played old-time fiddle tunes, the kind of really great stock songs that were swing-based, old-time based. And they did one of the big hits was Peter Rowan's Midnight Moonlight.
Right.
Long time everybody was singing that song, so it was good kind of stuff. And they were really talented. They were great. There was a band called Coxy Blue, led by a guy named Serge Launay, who's still around town, and they played early music, French, medieval, and early music. Little crumb horns and all this kind of stuff. They're a great band. And Tokyo Maru, which is Tom. What is his name? Tom. God, my brain is going. He's now an ethnomusicologist in Champaign, Illinois. But he got him Dan Dickey and a couple other folks that would play Peruvian music, and they were really good, serious, dead serious into doing it. And they would show up down there. Mark Lang and Take 5 was guitar-oriented swing band. There were lots of others that played over at Maggie Mays. Just a few blocks up, just walk down here in Congress is where the old Waterloo Ice House used to be. And the big hole there was Uncle Walt's band. And you may or may not have heard of them.
I know who Walt Hyatt is, yeah.
So Uncle Walt, they were the best. These guys were just incredibly good. And they play there all the time down at Waterloo. Steve Clark ran it. And so downtown there was a pretty good bit of music. Like I said, just a little ways up the street was a Green Spot, which was a real nice, just good Mexican beer joint. And like I said, a lot of middle-aged folks would hang out there and two-step, and they'd have Johnny Degollado would play pretty often there. So it was hardcore Mexicano place, and but real friendly people. A great place to go in the afternoon. have a few beers. There were no glass on the windows. It boarded the thing up when it was closed. You know, open it up when it was open, and you just walk right in. No air conditioning or anything. Beer was ice cold, and real nice place. Yeah, just it's like I grew up kind of around those places. I left home pretty early and went down to lived in Houston and worked in warehouses and factories around Navigation Street and over different places down near the ship channel. And go hang out in those joints because they were always nice to go in.
Yeah.
Called the Alma Juice I'll never forget. But it kind of reminded me of that. It's like where people who were pretty close to the country they came from, would go to hang out. And it was on 6th Street, which is now you're banished from there if you don't have a digital this on your head. It's just not a very attractive place anymore. But at the time, it was. And a lot of folks, and it was because the town wasn't so well off, and there was a lot of places boarded up and empty, and a lot of cheap rents, and so people that had a good idea and not much money could pull it off. It was kind of relaxed sort of environment, and it lent itself well towards people just doing things for non-monetary reasons. Now in the same establishments, it's so expensive that they couldn't afford to be free with the real estate. You have to turn $1 out every square foot in that sucker, or it's not yours anymore. But that was one of the things that was kind of nice about then. Let's see, and so it was kind of nice because you meet with different people and play, and the AFTM thing was fun because you go and show off a tune or two and then visit with everybody. And then there were bands that played. I was in a succession of little oddball groups of folks.
Well, okay. How did at some point I know AFTM, they wanted to organize something for some purpose. I mean, you described a large kind of extended circle of friends, and I guess things overlapped, and not everybody knew each other, but everybody knew somebody who knew somebody else.
It was small enough. Everybody pretty much knew everyone. Sometimes folks would show up for they called them the meetings. With AFTM meetings we had on Sundays where folks would come and play. And the people who would come, you didn't have to be a member by any stretch to do that, but all the members of the organization, of course, knew each other.
Why did AFTM, and I don't know, I know you found it when it was already existing, but at some point you got involved and you said you were on the board for a while?
Yeah, I think I was the editor of the newsletter for a while.
Okay, well, I guess what then, why an organization? Sounds like a bunch of hippies who had lots of opportunity just to play music together. Why an organization? Why a newsletter?
It's probably an ersatz framework. Like we were talking, I showed you that book by Johnny Doherty, the guy from Northern Ireland. And for him, at least according to the author, Ian Feldman, I think, a great book. In his interviews and interpretations of Doherty, he came away with the assertion that for him, once the dancing stopped, and once it was no longer a part of the community, the music was a very different thing. So that all by itself, although he continued to play because it brought him enjoyment, that type of enjoyment might be like looking at a photograph of a loved one who's gone. It's not the same as being with a loved one. So music, for him, had lost most all of its meaning and retained only the meaning that a photograph of your departed loved one would have. So I think that's true for any kind of human endeavor that isn't entirely directed towards some insular goal. And you get together and you play music with people. You say, well, this is really something I enjoy doing. And you realize that if you had been born into the same community that John Doherty was born into, or born into the community that Johnny Degato was born into, or something like that, the community and the art are one and the same. they define the community. You know, so it sort of defines you, and it has its place.
Yeah.
And so that means that it's going to survive as long as your community survives. For a lot of folks who have been in modern times displaced, much the same as they're displaced from their family. My folks live up in Tyler. My brother now lives in Kansas, and sister fortunately lives close by. My family, my wife's family, who are wonderful folks, very tight Sicilian family, all live in St. Louis. They've got a son who spends time traveling in New York, and a daughter who lives in Texas. So the family is torn apart. Same way the communities that supported these very rich musical forms were torn apart. I'm only a generation away from musicians in my family, but we sort of started it back up again. Every the Foster family reunion happens up in the town of Myrtle Springs in East Texas, and I look forward to it so much every year because I get to see my cousin Jim, who's a great guitar player, and Sarah's a harmonica player. DW plays a little dulcimer a little bit, and we get together and play music. And it's a good thing. It's music from around East Texas country stuff. Good cousin of mine from Martin Mill has a little country band out there, and he'll show up. And on my mom's side, on her dad's mom's side, the Cunninghams have had a reunion. I think this will be the 114th in the same place. Same old Grove of Oaks on Highway 16 between Gulf Lake and Comanche. And their music from around there, a lot of great music. The Westmoreland family is sort of the southern end of that Texas fiddle tradition that is centered around Fort Worth, Burleson, up in North Texas, Midlothian, all down there where Benny Thomason was from, and Terry Morris and those people, and then down into Mills, and actually I guess Mills County, Comanche County. There was Straley Alsop, who was a barber there in town, great fiddle player. Westmoreland family. There's Bus Westmoreland is like great grandfather of the latest contest winning Westmoreland. Lives in a little town called Gustine up there, and it's just great. So it overlaps. But of course, by the time I was born, my father was born in Van Zandt County in East Texas, and poor folks pretty much. His family made it through the Depression, and his dad had a grocery store, so they lost the farm the generation before, so that was out of the question. But it was modern times in the 1950s, and he wanted to break free. He went to North Texas State University and got his degree, and we moved away. We moved away from the family and everybody else. So then I became another little atom, called the other atoms that you see bouncing around out there. And you sort of find your way back, because you don't know, growing up that way, that anything's the matter with it, you know. And so you just go on about your way, and then you may be, if your ears are attuned to it, get hit by something musical, maybe something else that hits you. And of course, it may not ever hit you. You may be happy as you can, just bouncing out there as a particle all by yourself. But like I was telling you, when I heard it was Mance Lipscomb, when I was a kid, something was going on there. I could tell, and they told me it was folk music, and I couldn't relate it to the other stuff they said it was. And then I heard Liam Algo Flynn, and then Seamus Tansey, and I said, man, there's something going on here. And of course, I'd heard. It wasn't long after that I began to really listen to fiddling, and there were little get-togethers all around the place, and I'd go to see different music whenever I got the chance. I think Mark O'Connor. That was some years later, though, but that was my first exposure to really extreme Texas fiddling was through him. But so you got this thing, and I know I didn't think about it at the time, but in retrospect, I think that probably the reason that happens is that it can't survive all by itself. that sure, you could sit around and play that all by yourself, like Johnny Doherty, or somebody for whom the rest of the world has gone away, generations of other musicians, of course, who were never discovered by the writers and folklorists who dearly loved the music that they loved, and when the communities went away, they continued playing, just because it was all they had left.
That's okay.
Come on in.
Go ahead.
So,
Hold on a second.
that's all right. Don't worry about it. So, I guess, is that thing still running?
Yeah, it's still running.
Okay. Just rambling here about that idea, but I think it probably is, you sort of subconsciously knew that you had to do something
Yeah.
to keep the events happening, to give you a reason to go out and meet other folks and play and learn new tunes. Of course, in a vacuum, you can accomplish a little bit. Records are of immeasurable value, helping you learn tunes. You got to have some reason to learn it.
Right.
One of the main reasons to learn it is to play it with other folks on a Sunday, or get together with a whole lot of people and get the excitement, the same kind of excitement you get from dances. There's always been, as long as I can remember, square dances around on usually a weeknight at different places. They're still happening up at the Hancock Recreation Center on Wednesday.
Wednesday nights, right?
They have the square dance, so it's doing really good. There's a lot of folks that show up. Carpenter's Hall, there's another one. But just, it's just a lot of fun, regardless of what popular culture has to say about it. If you don't have much regard for popular culture in the first place, then it's really easy to look at things in face value. Instead of saying, they're making the same kind of disparaging comment that every other television-created psyche can come up with to dismiss things that don't fit what they've been told ought to fit.
Yeah.
And I've always liked to try to look beyond that stuff, because I figured then people were lying to me at an early age. Because I can still remember very well, my mother likes to remind me of this story, that at Christmas when I was a little kid living in Denton in a tiny little gold brick house, and Pop was finishing up his undergraduate or his postgraduate master's at North Texas State. And they didn't have squat for money. All the time I was growing up, my dad was a poor student. So it was like beans and cornbread all the time. But on TV I saw this thing called the Mighty Mo. And it was a huge cannon. It could take out whole armies. It came up over over this mountain with these giant wheels. And I think I was sort of about 5 or 6, because it was either before we moved. And man, I had to have it. Well, it was kind of an expensive deal, and I didn't know that. But Mom, they splurged and they got it. And I was so excited. Christmas Day, came and opened that up, and it was a piece of junk. God, it was a piece of junk. And I've never been so thankful for that piece of junk, because I think it taught me a really good lesson. So it was kind of like the same thing with the Mance Lipscomb and those people telling me, go look for folk music, and what did I find but Trini Lopez and things that weren't of interest to me, because somebody said that's how you ought to classify it. So at any rate, if you're not disposed to make assumptions about things like that, and you get around them and you realize how much fun it is to be with a room full of people dancing to very good, simple music, and like I said, you could dance with every woman in the room and visit and get worn out and have a good time. It's a hell of a lot of fun. Beats the hell out of slam dancing, at least. I tried both of them. I like squares and contras a little bit better. But so those things were going on, and of course, then just naturally you do what a community does. And so you unwittingly find yourself in this community, but instead of being one that grows oat, cuts peat, and has crossroad dances, it's one that does the jobs that are done inside a city and plays old time and swing music and has festivals.
Yeah.
So it's the natural thing that you just do because it's part of the community that you find yourself unwittingly in. And just adds to the pleasure and enjoyment. So the first one that I remember being involved with was, I think, 1977 or 8. Find out from the AFDM records, and they put it on down at Zilker Park.
Yeah.
And Pappy Self was there, he just passed away not long ago from down in Houston. Great Western swing band leader, and who claims to have written the Orange Blossoms. No, he actually doesn't. He claims to know that it was an old tune, and the Rouse brothers claim to have written. He called him full of. He has stories about him and Cliff Bruner playing down in Herman Park, in the 1930s and 40s when Cliff was just a little kid. And Cliff Bruner, a great fiddle player from also down in Houston, played with the Texas Wanderers. And so there's always been kind of a deep affinity among that organization for music all around, but I think they always felt obligated because they're thinking people. Dave Polchek is a very serious guy. He'll have to meet.
I emailed he and his wife, but no.
I'll give him a call.
Okay.
Dave is a very interesting person, very intelligent.
Karen, right? Is that his wife now?
Karen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I emailed them, but same time I did you, but nothing.
Well, I'll tell him because Dave loves to talk.
Okay.
And he's
And I sent it to Karen at UT because that was the address I had. What does she do? Is she on staff over there?
She's on staff, administrative staff over there.
I sent it over there because that was the one, whoever gave it to me gave me that email address.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing has come back.
Oh.
So.
Well, Dave's highly opinionated. One of the most opinionated folks you'll ever meet about.
Wonderful.
Bless his heart. And like I said, his folks he was like, the red diaper baby who cuts sugar cane in Cuba.
Yeah.
He was raised on folk music stuff because his family, I think his parents were in the Almanac Singers.
That's right, you mentioned that last time. What part of the country was he raised in?
California.
Okay.
California. They had back a long time ago, they had a band called the Possum Hunters out there. And this was in the late 60s, early 70s, about the time that Hank Bradley and a lot of the folks out there in Berkeley and wherever they were from were doing the West Coast old time scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so a bunch of good songs. We'd get up and do Otto Wood, the band that these obscure, really interesting Charlie Poole songs and things like that. They're very knowledgeable about Irish music, and that's one of the reasons that we got on at first. He was a big admirer of Seamus Ennis, who was an Irish folklore-dorty, he called the word that he used, because he kind of thought of the folklore was kind of a silly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time people who you accuse of being folklore types think that it's kind of a silly thing because they're just living.
Yeah, right.
But and Leo Rowsome and a real big admirer of the Uilleann pipes, the Irish style of piping. I'm sure you've seen those things. And he has a set himself. Stories he'll tell about that. But they put on that festival, and
Pappy Self, who else was playing at
gosh,
that
I don't
festival?
remember who all was there. It's kind of a foggy thing, Well, I've got old flyers from there's a lot of folks, just local bands at the time. Philip Holder and Mary Ruth at the time. His name is Boofy, who is now in law firm with him and Ann Richards. He's gone on, but he still is a very good flute player. And Mary Ruth plays the fiddle. I saw them just the other night. I think they were there, and they just had their instruments stolen, and so part of it was, I think, a benefit. Well, the benefit, it was right before them, and so that was going on. I can't remember.
This was in Zilker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Eagle Bone Whistle was probably planning on, but I'm not sure. It might have been before they even got started. But we could look and find a flyer.
Sure.
I've got a bunch of that stuff at the house. They tell us, they did. And then Light Crust Doughboys.
Oh.
Now, before the Paramount had begun to get snow really near, it was they'd restored the thing. Thank goodness, and it was available. But it was a lot more available then than it is now, for the same reason. There just are so many people here and so many opportunities that a lot of the things that are less in the line of approved moneymakers will never get a shot at Paramount. But we brought the Boys of the Law, who are very talented group of Irish musicians.
Oh, AFTM promoted this concert.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, okay.
And also Kevin Burke 2 or 3 times. I don't think he played at Paramount, but several places here in town. Did Donna and the Light Crust Doughboys. When I tell you, really about the first thing I got involved with, and there was a weekly get-together at the Elizabeth May Museum at this time, where people were singing at the Elizabeth.
We're still
May
in mid to late 70s. Okay.
Yeah, and there were those folks mainly just in the neighborhood. They were over there in Hyde Park. It wasn't very advertised at all. Everything was called it. I don't know what it was. I designed a poster for them. I used to do posters for the little events because it's the only way you could get it in anybody's notice. You could do a poster and tack it up. And so that was another one over at Hyde Park. And several things at Paramount. Christie's band, which was called Jazz Me Blues, played opened for the Boys of the Law. So that was a different thing. So you'd have a novelty jazz band open up for traditional music from the British Isles, and everybody just loved it.
Right.
It was really fun. And many of those folks are still around and have left. A lot of them, like all of us, have grown up and had to go through what you're going through now, raising the kids, and unless you have a career interest in the sort of thing that we're talking about now, it's very difficult to maintain the level of participation that you'd like to.
Sure.
And fortunately, what happens is things change. The kids grow up, and all of a sudden you don't have to watch them quite as much. And you come back out, and then organizations and things happen all over again. Since I think it's kind of nice about it is since it's this kind of music is not associated with as rock and roll was very much with a generation.
Yes.
So that if you like to listen to Gladys Knight and the Pips, well then obviously you were born at this time. And if you like 9 Inch Nails, then obviously you were born at this time. But a lot of the traditional music comes from a time things didn't change so fast, and it may be that you played a fiddle tune in a new kind of way because you were young and wild, but essentially the music was still there, and so it's not associated at all with an age group. One of the things I really noticed, there's an organization who I'm sure that you're aware of called the Texas Folklife Resources, which got started by someone who was an extreme go-getter.
Pat Jasper.
Yeah, and I was kind of put off by Pat at first because she's very aggressive and everything, but I think her heart is very much in the right place. She's just damn dog, she's going to get what she wants when she does it. And I'm glad that she wants what she does because a lot of what she does is really very good. And so I admire Pat a lot. And I like it. First I was really kind of, nonplussed by her, the way she was talking especially just seemed so weird. But I think she's mellowed out a lot in the last few years as she's lived here and started to meet folks. And through her I've met a lot of wonderful people. Clarence Holloman and Carol Fran, who were here a while back.
I heard them on your show.
He just died.
He died?
Yes, he did.
I had
Christy
lunch
told
with him.
me.
Pat hosted a lunch. I had lunch with him. No, he wouldn't know it. I was just some guy, but he was Clarence Holloman, so I remember that.
He's really great. I really just enjoyed being around him.
He just died. He must have died in the last few weeks.
Just up the day before yesterday, was at least when I found out about it, Christy was reading it in
You have a heart attack?
He was 86, so it's not.
Was he that old?
Can you believe that? He was 86 years old.
Man,
if I'm not mistaken, it was early in the morning when she was reading the newspaper to me, and I was doing something else. But I believe
I would have put him 20 years younger.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. So don't quote me on there. Check your sources on that one. But he was, he was not a young man, but it's always a shame when somebody with as much talent and personality leaves. When doing the radio show, it's just it's wonderful when you get somebody in who is just a real joy to be with. The way that I try to do that show is to make it just as relaxed as possible when people come in there, and because for me it's not a job. I have no interest in pursuing a career in either radio or being an MC or any of that kind of crap. It's essentially an extension of why I'm involved in the AFTM and all that stuff, and sort of how I got into it. It's just kind of selfish, I guess. I enjoy this kind of stuff, and I figure the more people that know about it and like it and wake up will wind up being that there's more people I can play from and learn from, show off in front of, and have it mean something. whatever kind of experiences you have outside of meeting people who scratch their heads and wonder what in the hell you're doing. So Clarence was like kind of a handful of people who come in there and they're great. You just want to just sit there and visit with them all day long.
He's a very soft-spoken guy.
Mm-hmm.
Had this kind of dignity to him. He had bouts. It's years back, but he drank heavily at one time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that except that it kills you.
Did you have a chance to observe AFTM go through real downs and
Oh,
notice
yeah.
when the things, would it fall apart at times and
Mhm.
then have to be forcibly rejuvenated? Do you have any?
Like any organization, people would get along and people wouldn't get along, and people would disagree about things, and it was never, there were never any knockdown drag-outs. Because one thing, there's never any money involved, so that was always wonderful.
Yeah.
An organization with a long history of artistic successes, which meant it had absolutely no money at all.
Right.
But more, what would happen is, I think, exhaustion or fatigue.
Uh-huh.
People would be trying to hold down jobs and raise kids and do this stuff at the same time and pull off a festival and then just kind of be tired and not want to do anything for a good long while again. Or
Right.
getting the newsletter out. One of the things that was really nice, and kind of, we lose with technology. I can remember the newsletter had come out monthly. And I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but one of the things that was a chore, but you kind of look forward to it. If you were the editor, or the editor knew you, and of course everybody else, when it came time to do the mail out, you had to put stickers on those things.
Right.
There'd be a sticker party, and people would come over and you'd fold newsletters and put stickers. It was not even taken down to Jenny and have them folded and slotted, and they're gone. But that was another thing that was really nice. Oh, we got to go fold newsletters over at Earl and Lori's house. Oh, okay, let's go. So do a talk and fold newsletters, and then somebody would carry them down to the post office. A chore, but it was kind of a nice chore. Not exactly barn raising, but kind of the same thing. So I think that, and the organization didn't have any regular functions that required a lot of effort.
Right.
Its most active days when I first came here, like I said, it was Sundays, and the big deal was Leo Sullivan hauling the sound system up. But Leo was a mysterious guy, and he had his own agenda that had nothing to do with anything that I knew of. I don't mean to say that right, because his agenda was a parallel one. I don't know what it was parallel to, but he's a very, very interesting person, very interesting guy. I don't know how old Leo is. He was in the Korean War, I know, and was severely injured over there, and knew a lot of folks, knew a lot of people in town, still does. And so he hauled the sound system down and made a tape record everything. Lots of tape recordings. Leo's house is full of tape recordings wherever he is now. Last I heard, he was out at the lake, married, left his previous wife some years ago, married a woman with a bunch of kids. And so I heard
He's got to be about 70 now.
That's hard to believe, but
He was in the Korean War. That was 50 years ago.
So, and his hangout for a long time was Katz's when it first opened up here. Leo liked to hang out there.
Katz's Deli?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Late at night, he drank coffee. Didn't not much of an alcohol drinker at all, but he did the sound for things that had at Soap Creek. And, he brought Bread Clay Ramblers here one year as part of a festival that happened at Soap Creek, which was really nice. It was just that was one of the really good festivals there. And he always had his green thermos full of coffee and some other things that you'd roll up and have with coffee. And very interesting sound techniques. He'd come over there, Dan, look at this. He had the mixer in this interesting pattern. Not particularly because of the way it sounded, but just because it looked cool. And but he was a good sound man too. But Leo would haul this stuff down. Of course, it started at the Armadillo, and he was younger, we were younger, and Sundays were like these long days, with nothing to do. So it was great. You'd fill it up with things like that, set up a sound system, and let her rip. So Leo was kind of always there as an anchor, and he and John Clay go way back. They were good friends. Earl Hunt and Lori. Earl was an early systems analyst back in the punch card days, computers, and so he was pretty well off. They were always pretty well heeled because it was a good thing. And he and Lori Wiley, his wife, were they've since split up. But I haven't seen Lori in a long time. Earl plays music, a real good musician, and he's currently associated with the master bass player. But it would just come in spurts. I don't know what made it go. It took a lot of things. For one, a place to have the Sunday meetings. They would start and stop, usually with changes in real estate. They were at the Rome Inn for a long time, which is where Texas French bread over on the 31st Street.
And Red River?
No, the ones down there was 21st Street bread.
Okay.
The ones in that little gold brick building on the corner down from the hardware store. Used to be a place called the Rome Inn, a country deal. It was a place called the Split Rail down on South Lamar, and Soap Creek, and then the Armadillo after that. And then where did it go next? It may have been somewhere between. After the Armadillo, I can't remember. Later on, it was at a place called Emma Joe's, which was where next door to where Antone's used to be. That's not where this used to be.
On 6th on Guadalupe.
On Guadalupe.
Okay.
And a guy named Ed, what's his name? Can't recall Ed's name. Opened up that place, and it was real nice, pool table and little kitchen, not much to it, but the AFTM met there for a while, and then after that closed down, so it got bounced around over years, and then it met a brief spot at a place called the California Hotel that the folks run in Magnolia Cafe, and the other one, the Omelet Tree. They were in that for a while. They were good friends in music. And then Waterloo Ice House was there for a while, the one over on 38th Street.
Right. Are they still doing it there?
Occasionally. It's not, I don't know, it's a different kind of the world's different now in a lot of ways. And I don't know, it might start back up again, but it was, I don't know, that was just part of the time then. It's different than it is now. Well, for one thing, it's just not people get around as much to do things like that just because it's hard to find a parking place.
Now, the Central Texas Bluegrass Association kind of formed out of AFTM, but How did
No.
that come about? Why,
No, they're,
why another group? It seems that AFTM
They're
accommodated
a
everything.
different bunch, and
How did that come about, if you know?
well, it's because the AFTM kind of centers around, I mean, in the organization, centers around sort of the founders and goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave and Maggie's interests were fairly eclectic, focused in certain ways, old-time music, and they're long hairs from California. And
Maggie Pollock.
Maggie's not. Maggie's from around here. Dave's from California.
This is Maggie Pollock. That was his first wife.
Maggie Polachek. Yeah.
Right. Is she around?
No, she died at, I'm going to say 1987,
Oh,
7 or 8. They moved up to Taylor and had a little girl, and she came down with cancer. It was very sad. Well, I've got great loss to a lot of folks because she's a wonderful person, and I miss her dearly. And a lot of folks I know she'll do. And Dave's new wife Karen is wonderful. She's a great person. But Maggie had a strange way of talking, and just I can't describe it. Maggie was something else.
So they were from California, which I can guess, long hairs.
He was, and
he
she,
was.
she made him here.
Yeah.
And she was a country girl pretty much. Now the CTBA is, in Texas, bluegrass caught on in the 40s and 50s the same way it did all over the country, because it was, a serious departure from the old-time music that you heard before. The Grand Ole Opry, was came about. Wonderful book on read by Charles Wolfe called Good Natured Riot.
Oh, about the early days of the
About
Opry.
the early days of the Opry.
Yeah.
Just a great book. Comes out of that fascinating period of surviving ancient traditions and hucksterism and revivalism.